So, one of the aspects of the coronavirus at the moment, the pandemic, is that the whole world finds itself united in one major crisis. And on the one hand, that has the tendency that we can regress into a collectivism where we all think we need to behave like everybody else. On the other hand, I think that coming out of the coronavirus and looking at the steps into the future, we actually will need to find global associative ways of dealing with the impact of the coronavirus. And I would like to highlight just a couple of things from South Africa at first, even though I live at the moment in a way, a privileged state in Switzerland, because we're allowed to go outside, we're allowed to work in our offices, we're allowed to meet people, we have amazing conversations, because people are so much more open to conversation at the moment as one of the results. But in South Africa, there's a severe lockdown at the moment. That means they're in so-called level 5. They're not allowed out of their homes except to go shopping, and you can be stopped by the police, and you have to show that you've got a shopping list or you've got goods that you've bought. And this has severe consequences. It's been like this already for 4 weeks. And tomorrow, if they're lucky, they're going to go on to level 4, which means that they're allowed to go outside and go for walks. But it still means that they have to stay at home. And I think that part of the difficulty of this, what I would like to call spatial distancing, not social distancing, is that on the one hand, there's this sense of loneliness and isolation where you actually really are confined to yourself and to your space. But if we look in the townships, all the casual workers don't have work and there's no compensation for the lack of income. And many of them, the people who travel a long way into the cities and work as caretakers, as home executives, we call them, they earn money to support their whole family. And these people now in the townships are living in very, very close proximity. There's no spatial distancing there. There's the exact opposite of that. And they have to learn to deal with the situation of being almost on top of each other all the time. On the other hand, there is the situation that nature is responding immediately. And there's these stories and pictures of the penguins, which of course usually are on the beach, are walking down the mid-street in Simonstown in Cape Town, for example. Anybody who knows Boulders Beach and the penguins in Simonstown can just imagine all the penguins walking down the main street. Or there's a story of the lions, a lion pride in the Kruger National Park, which is also lying on the tarmac where they otherwise don't ever come to where the tourists come. And so there's a shift and a change not only in human social interaction and way of being within themselves, but also in nature. And there are 3 aspects which I would like to highlight now in my experience, and perhaps also my concern with looking ahead into the future impact of the corona pandemic. And these I'd like to highlight as the question of work, the question of nature, or our physical world around us, the environment, and thirdly, this question of freedom. And first of all, the question of work. I think we need to understand work in a new way. I think people are now aware of how important it is to be allowed to work. And we are lucky if we can work from home in our offices, home office. We are lucky because we can continue to get a sense of self-worth and a sense of dignity, and a sense that we can contribute to a bigger human reality. We can do something for somebody else. We can do something which goes beyond ourselves. And all those people who can't work, and there are now, particularly in America, millions of unemployed people, or as I said, the casual workers who not only can't work, but also have no income, there's a real crisis in terms of not being able to contribute to other human beings or to humanity at large. And I think that asks us to re-look at this question of the value of work. The second thing is that we have discovered a whole new way of relating to each other, and I think Zoom conversations, Zoom meetings, worldwide international meetings now through telecommunication, Zoom and internet, has become part of our life. And with that, an even stronger disconnect to nature and to the surroundings, whereby if we look outside, we can see how strongly nature is responding to the quietness, to the lack of pollution or the limited pollution, and to the slowdown that we're experiencing at the moment. And so I think that this is another level which we need to look at, which I would like to focus on, is how do I develop a new level of interconnectedness in my own physical body with nature around, with the food I eat, with the care of the environment, through the fact that now I am so tuned onto a digital level. And as digitality moves into our classrooms and we learn to teach with digital format, and we learn to have meetings from our own little rooms, I think the need, at least for me, I'm experiencing that, and with other people, the need to reconnect to nature and to the natural surroundings, I think has become more palpable, more clear, more evident than ever before. So that too is a new thing for the future. How do we take that on? And thirdly, this question of freedom, where on the one hand, through lockdown, we feel completely part of a dictatorship. I think we are afraid that we're going into a new stage of totalitarianism, that all the governments are actually quite enjoying this, that they can control the societies completely. And the question comes up, is this the lockdown? Is it care or is it control? And is it both? And probably it is both, of course. And yet, how do we go live with this question of freedom? If we are so confined from outside through these rules and regulations, how do we find a new level of where have I got freedom of choice? Where do I explore my own freedom of thought, freedom of exploration of new concepts, of new ideas, of new friendships, of new ways, creative ways of developing social interaction within this lockdown process? And just to end with one little example, we know that there are new ideas of finding freedom in the limitations from the orchestras, which are all tuning into each other, and all the instruments are playing in their own lounge, and yet they are tuning in online. And you can have a whole orchestra of people with all the players in different places. There have been these videos. Or in Cape Town, there's this understanding that at 8 o'clock in the evening, everybody goes outside onto their balconies or outside into their gardens and calls and sings and greets people. And there are many other different ways of a creative design or a creative new design of social interaction, or I would like to say of own inner freedom. So in order to summarize my understanding of the situation, I think we all agree that we feel disempowered. We can feel trapped. And yet we also feel poised. In limbo, we can say waiting for something new to happen, and yet it's not going to happen unless we make it happen. And somehow we are poised in a position of total possibility. But I think the biggest danger is in this tension field that we find ourselves, coming from a past which we can't return to, we know that, and going into a future which we haven't got any idea of and isn't there yet unless we create it. And somehow standing poised between in this tension field, I think we have the possibility of endless purposefulness, new purposefulness. But I think it requires that we step up and decide for ourselves, are we going to fall into control and allow ourselves to be controlled from outside? Or are we going to try in creative interaction with other people together to create a new future? And a new future which has completely different understanding, as I've tried to describe, of work, for example, of freedom, for example, of our interrelatedness and interconnectedness to the natural surroundings. So I invite you all to join me, to join us, to join together in trying to shape a worthy future of which we have no idea until we do it.